My name is Jonathan Paula. Pleased to welcome you back for this final discussion as we talk about security, compliance, and privacy for data teams and platforms with these 6 experts from private AI, Acronis, Flafile, Satori, Panzura, and Dataddo. Thank you one and all for being here. It is a pleasure to welcome you into the Insight Jam as we begin our show with some short introductions. Patricia, you agreed to moderate, so let's let you start. 30 seconds or less. Tell the audience a bit about yourself and what you're looking forward to with this discussion.
Hi there, great to be here. I'm Patricia Thaler. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Private AI. I come from a background in research in privacy, natural language, and spoken language processing, focusing on homomorphic encryption and now PII. And really excited to hear about the latest and greatest in enterprise AI cybersecurity. What kind of problems our panelists have been grappling with over the last very whiplashy year.
Absolutely. Candid, you're up next. Welcome to the show.
Hey there, thanks for having me. Name's Candid West. I'm the VP of Product Management at Acronis with the specific focus on all the security products. You might know Acronis from the backup, like True Image 20 years ago, but we actually a lot more now. We're a cyber protection company, meaning we have cybersecurity combined with data protection because you need to break those silos. So regardless if it's patching email security or EDR, we can have that with the whole backup side. And yes, AI is a huge topic for us as well. So I'm curious to see all the other opinions on what we see on the threats and how privacy can be adhered.
Thank you very much. David.
Hey, my name is David Boskovic. I'm the CEO of Flafile. So we're a company solving the data import, collection, and exchange problem in enterprises. And as you can imagine, we've had the opportunity to address a lot of data security and AI problems with our customers and our product. Excited to be here today and looking forward to the conversation.
Same. Eldad, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Hey, everyone. I'm Eldad Chai. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Satori. I live in Sunnyvale, California. Happy to be here. Satori is a data security platform that automates access, security, and privacy for the modern data stack. So we work with a lot of large and medium-sized data-driven organizations that want to move faster with their data and AI, and we help them with that. Looking forward to a great discussion today.
Thank you. Katie, welcome.
Howdy. Katie McCullough, Chief Information Security Officer at Panzura. I have had the great fortune in providing various solutions and products to customers in the security realm, managed services, and cloud for going on 30 years now. At Panzura in particular, we get to focus on providing global file systems that are certainly secure, but also the data services behind it that can help customers make good decisions about where their data is and who's using it. So I very much look forward to today's conversation because number one, with security and all the practices that are there for me, building a community of people to understand and apply those learnings in my own day-to-day and for the benefit of our customers always is a good use of my time.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here. And last but not least, Petra.
Hi, my name is Peter Nemeth. I'm the founder and CEO of Dataddo. We are essentially a data integration company, which helps more than 4,000 organizations across the globe to solve their, data integration issues. I have been personally, in the data industry involved with more than 10 years, coming originally from the developer background, and of course, providing data integration services. Data security and privacy is, of course, a very, very big topic for us, and of course, happy to share my thoughts.
Excellent. Excited to have all of you share your thoughts over the next hour or so. So with that, I'll step out of the way, and Patricia, let you kick things off with the first question.
Sounds great. I find that nothing really sets the groundwork as much as really high quality anecdotes about the use of technology. So could you start us off by describing a challenging security, privacy, or compliance problem that you've helped address? Katie, let's start with you.
Absolutely. So that is one of the huge reasons why I'm at Panzura is we've had the opportunity. You need to be proactive. You need to monitor for security events and certainly all the growing privacy laws and compliance needs. But at the end of the day, you know there's likely going to be an event that you're going to have to deal with. And data resiliency becomes such a critical item in that path. I have spent way too many times in situations trying to understand what happened, and all of that takes so much time that then being able to get backups going and restoring your data, I mean, all of that, the timeline, as we all know, just starts to extend greatly. If you know you've got your, snapshots and immutable data, you are able to restore much quickly once you get that all clear signal, right? And that becomes less of a barrier in that restoration. So for me personally and professionally, data resiliency has become such a critical item, both for our customers and a service that we've been able to routinely provide for customers, being able to restore quickly when that event happens.
Yeah, definitely a huge problem, especially with all the ransomware out there. Thank you for sharing, Katie. Eldad, would you like to go next?
Yeah, thank you. I can share an interesting story. I think we're in an interesting domain here with the intersection between data and security, where security is always important, but sometimes coming from a more defensive perspective, data is just there's so much power behind it. Companies, CEOs, executive pushing for competitive advantage, operational efficiency through data. So it's interesting seeing the dynamics. We were part of a very interesting project with one of the largest insurance companies in the US, where they were more traditional company. They were seeing all these new kind of mobile companies doing like on the spot real time insurance quote. They were losing market share, and they wanted to launch their own app. And they built a new team, and it's all modern data stack to support that, because if you want to do real quotes, you have to have like the right data platform underneath that. But there's still a huge corporate, and they still have all their compliance, security, privacy for a traditional slow-moving corporate. So that becomes really challenging. It becomes an inhibitor for you as a business to go and pursue your strategy, your data strategy, your business strategy. And that's where companies like Satori and others here come in and really are able to remove that bottleneck. So if you're on to a modern data stack, if you're on to really data-driven project, you have to have like the next generation of security to be able to operate that. You can't stick to your old things you did before. And that was really interesting to see how security actually becomes a business enabler for a company to go and pursue a new line of business. So I think that's a cool story.
That is a very cool story. Thank you, Eldad. Peter, do you want to go next?
Yes, absolutely. So of course, I'm glad that Eldad mentioned the modern data stack. Of course, we are working a lot on that part as well. Being a data integration company, what we are solving a lot is what we call a data centralization, where typically these days companies has a lot of the data scattered across the multiple business applications, whether it's CRM, ERPs, and of course once they want to start to deploy a proper data analytics or even AI strategy, they start to figure out, of course, how to centralize the data, which typically involves extracting all this information and channeling them typically to some data warehouse or cloud data warehouse. But of course, there is a very big hidden data privacy, potentially data security challenge when it comes to the fact that when you are, for instance, working with some CRM system or ERP system, you have a very precise and very tight access control to that. But once you start exporting and extracting data to the data warehouse, there is a completely different level of control. There's a completely different people who are actually accessing the data. Typically it could be just data analysts or data engineers who of course are working on the under completely different domain, and of course this is posing a lot of the issues from the security and the privacy standpoint. So of course what we are trying to do, we are trying to employ some clever techniques from the data hashing, data masking, to make sure that those potential leakages are being catched at the very pipeline level, even before they reach the data warehouse or any kind of centralized storage.
Love it. So far, all very complementary solutions. Candid, do you want to take the next one?
Sure. And I probably would start off with kind of the old saying of just because you're compliant does not mean you're secure, right? And going into the same direction, of course, IT has grown more and more complex. So even though we see that people are using solutions, the question is always how good are they deployed and configured? And my story comes from kind of a classical managed security provider, which has SMBs that they kind of look after. And unfortunately, they had some issues with the configuration. And of course, it started off with the administrator having a weak password and no multi-factor authentication enabled on the console. So the attackers were able to guess the password, log into this email, and then they saw, oh, there's a backup console. So let's try and log in there. It was a different password, but because you have access to the email, you can, of course, do a password reset, right? So through that, they gained access to the backup console. And the first thing they did was, of course, disable and delete all the backups because there was no immutable backup storage used. And then, because before they wanted to roll out their ransomware, they also wanted to extract the information, right? So in that case, they actually used the backup solution to create a new backup, but of course to an attacker-controlled cloud provider. So they used the tools already there to kind of steal all the data. And you can imagine it was unfortunately not blocked because it was using the tools as intended by the attackers, not by the company itself. But there was not really any malware being used apart from the ransomware at the very last level. And that kind of shows that complexity can, of course, be your kind of hindrance here. So making sure that everything is simple and you know what you configure is key in all the IT situations.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely human problems a lot of the time for sure. Thank you for sharing, Candid. David, last but not least.
Yeah. So Flafile is a data exchange company, and broadly what that means is our customers are coming to us trying to help, they're trying to get solutions for securely exchanging data with customers or vendors or whatever. What's interesting though is some of the craziest like status quos that we've seen, and your mom knows enough probably not to email people her credit card number in plain text. But you would be amazed at how many companies are emailing back and forth spreadsheets full of incredibly sensitive data. And that's their process of exchanging data. Hey, customer, just shoot me over that spreadsheet full of every single employee you have and all their social security numbers. We'll take it from there. Well, guess what? Fully unencrypted, going over, like, get the risk being distributed across so many different systems. And so an actual customer that came in, they have this massive process. They would work with like 200 people during the data exchange process. And their process was literally to email, like break up this data into 200 different spreadsheets and email it out to 200 different people, get them to email it back and re-aggregate it, except for the fact that it's obviously all sensitive data. So oftentimes people come to our platform, right, going, hey, we should probably stop doing this. But it is just amazing. When we think about data security, we're oftentimes thinking about like encryption and data at rest and like the real stuff. But oftentimes an enterprise's status quo is so far below that. So yeah, it's interesting the spectrum this problem has.
Definitely. Thank you, David, for sharing. Always cringeworthy to hear that kind of thing. I thank you for helping solve that. Next, we will go into the meats and bones of what was really going on in the last year. Curious if you could share your perspectives on the challenges and advantages you've seen of AI. Candid, would you like to go first?
Sure. I mean, of course, I've been 25 years now in cybersecurity. So for me, it was not just the defense, but also the offense part, which was interesting. And I mean, it's now about 1 year, 12 months since ChatGPT made its debut on the market, and we're still here, right? So the world has not ended, which obviously is a good sign. So yes, we have seen the frequency increase and the volume of those attacks, because specifically phishing emails are now very easy to generate. As I said, I'm based in Switzerland. We've seen now phishing emails in Swiss German, which no official company would ever use. It's more like a small dialect. But some phishers, they probably just said, hey, please translate it to the local language. So we see a good amount of those. There were some malware as well. But from the protection side, I'm not too worried because actually the behavior is still the same, right? If they try to encrypt your data, that's a behavior you can look at. If they try to steal your Bitcoin wallet, that's something you can look at. And the behavior-based detections don't really care if it was generated by a script kiddie, your neighbor, or by some AI. But on the defense side, I definitely see that we're getting a lot of, let's say, expert in a box system. And specifically for our market, where we have lots of SMBs or MSPs with not enough resources, that's a great help, right? Having someone that you can ask and say, hey, what does that PowerShell script actually do? Or how should I respond here? Or who do I need to report it? Because probably that privacy is relevant here. So I think that will definitely help the companies to get further and hopefully increase the resilience.
Mm-hmm. So that I think that is a little bit heartwarming to hear that AI cannot fool the behavioral detection systems. Are you using AI for behavioral detection as well?
We at Acronis have been using AI for over a decade, actually, and we increase it, of course. We this year, of course, developed a transformer-based module, because that's kind of the rage at the moment. And yes, we are refining those models over and over again. So we are, well, probably shouldn't say waiting, but we haven't seen the Terminator ransomware or kind of Skynet cases coming. Maybe they will come, but currently it's a lot more of the same attacks, but in kind of small variations that we can still handle.
Noted. Peter, anything that you'd like to add to that question?
So of course, I would 100% agree with the candidate that the let's say amount of the phishing attacks heavily increased. He mentioned that that there has been the attacks in the Swiss German. For our case, as part of our company is based in the Czech Republic, we see that there is also phishing emails in the Czech, which we haven't seen before. So this is definitely something that's breaking. But from the other side, for us, we are actually heavily using AI for our features, which is called data privacy shield, which essentially is a tool that is able to extract the semantical information from the data. And of course, this helps us to mask any kind of sensitive information. So of course, previously understanding whether the particular string or particular number has any kind of importance or any kind of privacy implications, like social security number or email address or bank account number. This has been rather difficult in terms of identify that. But with the advent of the AI, with the advent of actually, I would say, fairly accessible large language models, this has become a way more easier task to perform. So from our perspective and from the perspective of overall data protection, this is definitely something that is helping us a lot. And I believe that for any other vendors that are operating in this space, this is a great piece of technology to actually tap into.
Brilliant. Lots of chats about what's going on in the email space. David, you started your anecdote about emails. Anything you want to add there?
Not specifically on emails, but it's been incredibly interesting to see how our customers have started leveraging AI through our product. And Flafile deals with so many of these like basic data problems, right? It might be as simple as, hey, this thing needs to be capitalized. It might be formatting things. And these are things that like AI is generally good at, right? Absent using AI for it, you're probably going to spend a lot of time in a spreadsheet, writing formulas, trying to clean it up. So we've brought AI into our product in a way that allows customers to just basically ask AI to do a lot of this work. But what's interesting is we've discovered that there's like two sides to this AI security problem. One is the data that goes into it, and Patricia, what you guys are doing and making sure that models don't actually get the sensitive data is incredibly interesting. But then there's the egress side of it, right? Like, what does the AI produce, and can I trust it in my business? In a world where like the data is so critical to your business and the data integrity is very important, the output of a non-deterministic system can be very risky, but it can also save you a lot of time. So we've built a philosophy around this we call like zero trust AI, but basically working with AI in a way that allows you to review and approve everything it does without giving it access to any of your data, right? So giving it commands that essentially allow it to operate as a person would, and then making sure the humans that are still involved in that process get to review and approve everything. And we think that there's going to be a huge gap in the industry as the capabilities of AI emerge, but people don't yet trust AI to actually apply to their business problems. So we're working on solving this problem of also like, what can AI produce, and is it something trustworthy for my business, or is it going to make all the wrong stock trades tomorrow?
No. Do you find that there's room for AI in any similar way, Katie, in data immutability?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, in terms of how our customers are looking at their data, and the fact that we've got some visibility to the type of files and behaviors that we're seeing in their data, we're able to, keep a AI model that allows us to assess what that data is, how that data may be changing over time, and if it's unfortunately changing in a way that shows any kind of indicator of compromise, we're able to feed that information back to the customer in a more heuristic manner, right? We aren't going to all the time be able to say definitively, right? That's the nature of a security situation where you've got to be able to look at the business context of what they're doing with the file, because sometimes those behaviors could be legitimate.
Got it. And Eldad, anything to add?
Yeah, I'd like to take a different perspective here. So, we're doing a lot with AI and machine learning, but I actually want to take the perspective of what we're seeing in the market. So less about our product and operations, but what we're seeing our customers doing. So what I think happened in the last couple of years, which really are, part of this explosion in data and AI, is that different levels of the data stack have become really shelf software, so anyone can go and use them. So if you want a data warehouse, great, you can go and buy the best one out in the market, pretty easy. If you want a great data lake, same thing. And then all sorts of layers within data and AI have become just, really almost consumer level. Chat GPT, right? Who would imagine you'd need to have like 50 different data scientists and engineers just to build something, remotely close to that. So that has become like almost commoditized. And that's why, part of the reason we're seeing all these use cases, which is really, nice to see how it's popping. We're talking about some negative use cases like, spam, but there's also very, very interesting positive use cases that nobody have ever thought about. Now, where the challenge starts coming into data and AI is what we're seeing is scale. So now it's not just, I have one use case, one, backend database in one application. Now I have, this amazing data platform that serves many use cases on finance, marketing, product, different business units. How do I scale? How do I scale? Like, someone was saying, I think David was talking about, we want to validate what the AI spits out. How do you scale that if you're now, trying to replicate that across multiple business units? How do you scale compliance? How do you scale access controls? How do you scale privacy? Those are all becoming friction and accumulated friction in large companies, which I think almost all of us in this room are trying to solve it from all different angles. I think that is the real challenge in AI. Like, we're at the stage where it's there. If you have a good idea, you can go and implement that. Now, how do you make that work at a real world environment that requires scale is a big challenge.
Mm-hmm. Curious to hear from the room for use of AI for behavioral analysis. How well do you find that scales?
You mean on process behavior or user behavior?
Both.
I mean, it does scale. There, it's usually just kind of the pre-processing of the data. But I'm absolutely with Eldad. The question is what you do afterwards with the results. Do you trust it? We're running into, well, actually, we are already arriving at AI versus AI, right? You need your AI to react to the adversary because it needs to be fast and have everything. But then you need another AI on top of it to do the filtering and make sure that the first one didn't kind of betray you. And the question is, where does it stop, right? So this is definitely a challenge I see.
And how do you measure accuracy?
Exactly. I think David mentioned, right, that the AI might do something that you didn't expect, like deleting all your backups. Well, maybe that's the intention because that's the goal. So it's as with children, it depends on what your question was, right? Maybe the answer is correct, just not as you intended.
Mm. That's fair. There are a lot of people using ChatGPT for unintended purposes. So would love to shift gears a little bit and discuss what the current developer experience is in integrating privacy and security into workflows, and whether there are any challenges you want to discuss and how they can overcome that. How about Eldad, would you like to go first?
Yeah. So our solution is adopted by data engineers, software engineers. So we're very close to that team. And unfortunately, they don't have great solutions to go and do that. So I didn't share my background, but I've been doing cybersecurity for many years, with startups and larger companies and application security and data security. And if I found one thing that's effective with security is if you can make it part of your day-to-day operations, that's where you win as a company. If it's bolted on top, if it comes afterwards, it's all good. You can do that. You can catch it, identify a breach after it happens. You probably need some of these protections, but where things really are effective is when security is part of just the natural day-to-day. So think about DevOps and DevSecOps. That's where really application security became something that goes beyond the web application firewall and so-called SDLC. So it's the same with data. That's what we see. So they don't have really good solutions to do that. There's a whole shift now from SQL as the main tool for people to manage their data to things like dbt and then APIs. GCP is really good at having things captured in APIs and not SQL. So the whole data domain is looking more like the whole data engineering domain looks more like software engineering, which is really interesting in my eyes. But then us the vendors need to support that and have tools ready in place for companies and engineers just to have security built into their day-to-day. It's not something that's bolt on. It's not something that comes afterward. It has to be streamlined in how things work and how you develop your platforms. So I think the where it is today, it is not great. I think we take a part in starting to change that. I think when we see more vendors moving that direction, we'll see a big change in data security, really have an evolution in data security as it is today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Eldad, to your point, that's just where it starts, right? Security by design, if you start there, it makes life so much easier. And for me, I love the concept of, we talk a lot about the application hardening. And I really like to view it as it's more about the application loosening, right? So if you start from that security by design, then your defaults, and I get you've got to balance that, right? To your point, Eldad, you got to make it frictionless, but so that ease of setup comes with maybe some not having that hardening in place. But as we all know, right, those hardening guidelines also give the adversaries a heads up on where they could see flaws in your software. And so, but if you approach it as the default setup is hardened to begin with, and you're actually giving customers guidance on loosening it, that just changes the script for everybody, right? But to your point, you've got to start with that security by design philosophy, or you're never going to get there.
David, do you want to?
Yeah, I think about the developer experience aspect of this. This is Flafile is a developer platform for data solving data problems. So this is something we think about a lot. But one of the things that we've noticed being a developer platform is just how much easier it's getting to do the developer work, like the integration work, etc. For some of our enterprise customers, we can use AI to generate almost entirely complete POCs. For some of our customers integrating and trying to solve different validations or data integrity problems, they can use AI to generate do a lot of that coding and a lot of that development. What's interesting is I suspect that in the near future, there will be this convergence of like developer platforms and no code in a world where AI can write code very effectively. And the developer platforms are uniquely set up here because AI knows how to write code. It doesn't necessarily know how to navigate your application as well. So, things that historically were only accessible to very like highly trained engineers are going to be far more accessible across the business because of this sort of accessibility of the developer experience now.
And I imagine that you don't have to deal too much with engineers thinking that they can build cybersecurity applications and integrations from scratch. However, from the privacy side, I hear a lot of developers still not understanding the complexities of how you shouldn't build these things yourself, much like you shouldn't build your own cryptographic algorithm on your own. Peter, I'm curious to hear what you've encountered on that front.
Really, for me, having the developer background, I don't see a developer experience to be a big problem. To be absolutely honest, for me, I see two rather more pressing challenges. The number one is actually navigating through the technology, because with the AI hype, you have a lot of new models coming to the place, lots of noise happening all over the place, and of course, it's difficult to choose the right one. And of course, if you do so, you might risking yourself to choosing the wrong one, and or if you choose a vendor that might go bankrupt in a couple of months, then of course you put yourself into the risk. So that's number one. And number two, I like the fact that when David mentioned the deterministic and non-deterministic outcomes, which is very important, because what we see with the AI hype, that everybody is so excited about it, that they are really trying to deploy the let's say AI-based solution in the context of non-deterministic engine to the stuff or to the to kind of problems that should be solved deterministically. And of course, this on the other hand might lead to the very wrong outcomes. And of course, but these days everybody's excited about the AI, and everybody's in the stage where they want to deploy AI for at least almost everything. So that's what I see as the main challenge.
Great. Great segue to my next question. What are some of the best practices and organizational efforts that you've seen to prevent sophisticated attacks, especially in the context of generative AI? And can you identify some of the most severe attacks? Candid, do you want to take that one?
Sure. I mean, I guess one, which is the basic, doing the best practice, but also reducing complexity, right? As my anecdote kind of showed, we still see that the tools are usually available, right? We just fail in implementing it correctly. And to talk about AI usually reminds me at kind of all the things we had, like cloud lock-in, right? Peter just mentioned you probably now have an AI lock-in because you refine your models, you build everything, and you might be in the wrong SID. And for the filtering, it's similar to the web application firewall, right? Where you try to avoid SQL injection. Now it's a prompt injection that you're trying to avoid. So we're trying to apply the same things to something completely new. And even the old ones have already failed. So I think there's still a few challenges there coming. What I'm usually missing in the discussion is kind of the attacks against the AI model itself, right? Because you're going to use it somewhere. So there will be private information in there, which can be deduced, right? So there have been many examples where kind of LLMs spit out some information from their training data. So it could be some information, valid Windows license keys have been extracted from ChatGPT and others. So those are things that you definitely want to prevent, right? So those data breaches. Or for security, of course, someone who then managed to bypass your detection. And if you want to know more about it, I'd highly recommend, of course, going for the MITRE Atlas framework. So they started specifically for AI, listing out some of the techniques that we've seen in those attacks. The most frequent, though, I've seen is just stealing your OpenAI or your favorite AI license key and API key and putting them somewhere on for bot, or using the tokens that you probably purchased in terms of your competition will use them up. So like, again, 15 years ago, we had it with AdWords, that competition would just ping your websites and kind of use up all the money for your advertisements. Now they can just use 100 queries per second on your chatbot to use up all your money that you set behind for your AI. So making sure that those things are covered, and then you probably can go over and think about nation states, putting in some bias in the model to begin with.
Those are all great points. And I'd like to loop that over to Eldad, who had initially talked to us about the security that he'll built in as a platform for the app for his customer. Eldad, with what Candid mentioned and all these new developments, how is there anything that you would do differently? Is there anything that you think would still hold up? Anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I think if I think about data security risks specifically, so one of the things, it's actually the same customer. One of the things they said, which I really liked, is we can do a lot of things to protect our data, and probably there's a lot of bad things that can happen that we need to protect from. But really, the one thing we can do that's going to be the most effective is make security the easiest path for people to get the data. If secure access to data is the easiest path for the organization to follow, you're already 80% there to getting your goal. And yes, there are all sorts of attack vectors. If I can share my perspective from really seeing the market from different areas. The one thing I've seen that is kind of a root cause for many of the attacks is just overprivileged. I mean, there's all sorts of ways you can get to privileged users, but the sad thing about organizations is that most of the users, I would say 99% of the users, are overprivileged just by definition, because it's really hard to manage, who can access what data. And wherever they got through, an application attack vector, a network attack vector, social engineering, some way someone got to getting credentials of an app, an API user, that user 9 out of 10 times should not have had permissions to access either that specific type of data or that amount of data. So like my two takeaways around data security, which also led to some part us opening Satori and was implemented in that customers, make secure access to data the easiest path for people. Already you've done like tremendous work for that company. And number two, like make sure us, I think David mentioned like the zero trust concept. Leverage, yeah. I don't want to say zero trust because it's a loaded term, but least privilege access, so make sure that you can operate a clean environment where people have access only to what they need are the most effective things, and would solve most of the attack vectors, which are very diverse.
Yeah, and the only thing I would add to this whole conversation in terms of the protections and attacks from AI, right? So many people are going to incorporate the code, whether it's open source or third-party libraries that are associated with doing AI type functions. And we've got to continue our diligence on understanding what those third-party libraries or open source are that we're incorporating into applications and how they proliferate, and then ultimately how they potentially have vulnerabilities and introduce vulnerabilities into what could be a customer solution. So it somewhat goes back to Candid started with, there's just basic philosophies that still hold true in security, and understanding, what is in and what is out, and where your vulnerabilities are still stay true for something like AI.
Great segue into the next question, which is, what do you think are some of the major ways that developers can integrate security best practices into their day-to-day coding? Any low-hanging fruit or any resources you recommend, or anything that, if it is a huge lift, they absolutely should be doing regardless? Would you like to take that, Candid?
Yeah, I mean, kind of already hinted on a few things, right? Like the GitHub Copilot, and there are other similar products available, of course, as well, which can help the developers write better code. AI itself is not perfect. It writes bad code as well, and sometimes vulnerable, but it still kind of in a tandem can help. And I think the important word here is the co-pilot. It's not a pilot. So like David said, you still need to review it and kind of look at it, but it can speed it up. And depending on your location, it can also help because it's not really bashing the developer and saying, hey, you did something wrong, right, in front of the whole team. You can interact with it and improve yourself quickly. So I think that's a nice one. And of course, the AI can also help to automatically do, whenever you do a new compiling of your application, do a quick check, do some automated testing, even down to pen testing, to see has there any new vulnerability been introduced, and then fix it before it's deployed. So helping that shift left, I think, is key here. But for that, of course, you need to know where the information goes, right? You want to know if all your source code is actually sent somewhere and then used for refining a model, or if it stays in your cloud tenant and you actually have control.
Absolutely. Microsoft did recently say that they will take on any copyright infringement claims against somebody using Copilot. However, yes, it is always a good question to ask. What is happening with your data? Peter, would you like to go next and address that question?
Yeah, so I would really go for the lowest hanging fruit that I believe, in my opinion, still is not addressed. Within my career, I see so many times that developers were putting access tokens, security codes, passwords for various services where they are when they are calling third-party APIs, when they are accessing the databases, where they are accessing any kind of third-party services directly into the code. And of course, this is the biggest problem that is happening, especially when these days a lot of the companies are using this CI/CD procedure, where typically the code is being sent to some cloud service like GitHub, GitLab, where it's being processed. It's typically being processed on the shared cloud environment, where it can be potentially leaked as well. So whenever doing any kind of technical code audit, this is the number one priority to put it there. Make sure that there is no kind of access code in the code, everything in the environmental variables, to make sure that this is secure.
Yeah, taking what we're trying to think about this within just our own engineering team here. But one of the interesting things is, if you look historically at the way engineering teams think about security, they oftentimes think of it in terms of like boundaries, right? Like sort of like, what are the walls we set up here that like protect our data, product, etc. What's interesting though is that like the easiest way to get something done is to make it easy to do. So engineers tend towards following like the path of least resistance. So if you look at like what AI is making easy to do, you look at an entire new world of ways to like motivate like really great engineering, right? Oftentimes the biggest security flaws in products that end up making it into production are there because someone didn't have time to finish something, right? Or they didn't like, it was like too complex and they didn't go deep enough in the problem and find this area or issue. With AI, these things become easier. And I think it'll allow for security to not just be a like defensive thing, but actually a proactive thing that engineers incorporate into their regular development, because the ability to do and think about complex problems and have something help you think about those problems is becoming a lot more accessible. So I like our engineering team thinking of security in terms of like the proactive and like design and building side of it, not just the things, not just what we don't do and what we protect ourselves against.
Love that. Proactivity for the win. Any final thoughts in the last 60 seconds that you'd like to share? I'm going to go around through all the panelists. Eldad, would you like to give us some thoughts?
Yeah, for sure. I think this defining moment for data security, to be honest, not to be too dramatic, is just because, it's, if there's one thing that is true about security is critical companies need it, they will do it and invest a lot of money, but business is stronger, the market's stronger. And the power behind data, AI, analytics is just so immense. So companies are running. And the reason I'm saying it's a defining moment because, myself, Satori, the other people here in the room, this is, our time to go and step up to the challenge and bring in these, Gen 3 products that actually fit the challenge, which is different. It's not the same thing as it was. So kind of it's exciting times. There were really, really great concepts here today, which I encourage everyone to adopt. So yeah, that's kind of my final thoughts.
Thank you. Katie.
Yeah, just a couple themes. One is, we've talked a lot about easy use, frictionless. I do think, so many of our applications and data sets are trying to talk to each other anymore. And things like APIs maybe don't get enough attention when it comes to security. So I know my teams are tired of hearing me talk about it, but, making sure your APIs are secure, because that is the new data leakage, right, with how we're passing data around. And then the second piece to that is the vulnerabilities, right? And the more we can make our products and applications easy to upgrade. So again, it's frictionless for customers to just keep the upgrades going in their environment so that when vulnerabilities are identified, that they are quickly resolved in a customer's environment. So our developers have to have that tooling in mind as they're creating our solutions for our customers. But I think both of those continue to be weak areas that we got to continue to push on from a security standpoint.
Peter?
Yeah, so from my perspective, of course, the push for the AI, the push for the data-driven companies, data-driven decision making inevitably leads to the fact that you have very interconnected systems together, which means that once there is data leakage, this has a sort of cascading effect to other systems that are involved. So really, what is from my point of view extremely important when it comes to dealing with the data security is the fact to try to sort any kind of potential problems at the very, very source of the data, whether it's the originating system of your customers, originating system of your payments, originating system of your invoices. But it's really important to look at it, and this kind of refers back to what has Katie mentioned when she was referring to the securing of the APIs, which is really the interface through which the data can be shared. So yes, this what I see as an important part.
David?
Yeah, maybe just back to my point about determinism and non-determinism. Like the new world of problems that we are solving are the fact that computers are going from producing predictable things to unpredictable things, right? And those things can be very good and they can save us a lot of time, but it's a new way of working with computers. But we, like most businesses, already know how to do this because humans tend to be very non-deterministic. But we don't oftentimes interact with machines like that. So I think like there's going to be a whole world of solving data and security problems that is far more around finding interfaces that allow us to interact with machines in similar ways that we interact with humans, because machines are actually acting a lot more like humans. That will come into the entire data integrity pipeline and data supply chain that we put things through. And more so we'll find ourselves like just having to solve things with user experience more so than just algorithms and pipelines. So that's obviously the problem we're solving at Flafile. So really excited to have been here today.
Yeah, I probably would kind of restate that people are using AI at the moment, specifically generative AI. I have not come across a single company where not one of the employee is using it for writing emails, do some translation or whatever. The question is, do you know about it in the IT department, right? And very often they do not. And as we alluded, it's probably because there is no simple way provided to the employees, so they just copy paste stuff to the websites directly. So you want to prevent that by actually offering it, by engineer some process, or at least give some guidelines. I still see rarely the company actually do have proper usable guidelines for AI. On the other hand, it still kind of should not be overweighted, meaning that you still need to do the basics, the best practices, as we said. It's very nice and good if you have the privacy aspect of generative AI under control and know what is passed in. But if your data is on an unsecured S3 bucket, or your backups can be deleted and they're not encrypted, then that's probably the bigger risk, and attackers will go after that, because the cyber criminals, they go for the low-hanging fruits as well, right? They may attack AI, but they definitely will attack if you have not the best practice done. So I would say fix those first, but keep AI there because it can help you fixing those things as well.
Those are all great points. And I'll double down on proactivity and those fundamental problems. I think that we're approaching what could be a golden age of cybersecurity, because we now have the opportunity to deal with one of the fundamental problems, which is the human mistake aspect of it, both from an engineering side and social engineering side, and also dealing with the fundamental problems of what kind of data is even in your environment, what is it that you need to protect. And there's also a lot more information out there about how to best do that. So thank you very much to the panelists for all of your great insights and all the solutions that you work on that are extremely necessary.
Yes, I definitely want to echo that statement. Great discussion, one and all. Really appreciate your time. Before we go, I'd love to give you an opportunity each to do some self-promo. If you want to plug your personal LinkedIn profile or your company solution, floor is entirely yours. 30 seconds or less, and we'll go counterclockwise, starting with Peter.
Yeah, so as I have mentioned many times, through the discussion, we provide a data integration platform. The data integration platform is, able to extract the data from the multiple systems, channeling them to the various, data warehouses, data lakes, etc. But what is important, we provide a data privacy shield as well as, the data quality firewall, which is specific tools that allows you to detect any kind of potential anomalies, any kind of, data leakage, privacy leakages at the very source level. So this is something that can, extremely help any company who is trying to, solve their data privacy related challenges.
Thank you very much, and thanks for being here. Katie, where would you like to send the audience?
So first and foremost, really appreciate being here. And again, where I started with is building a network, because we're not going to solve all these problems individually. So it's just been great to be a part of this. I will say, just in terms of Panzura, right, my goal in life here is I'd love to have the moment where bad actors are in a customer's environment. They're doing their reconnaissance. They see Panzura node, and they realize their return on investment just went out the door, and so they hightail it out of there. I don't know that I'll ever achieve that goal, but we're certainly trying, and we've got a lot of great ways that we can help customers with their data.
Appreciate that very much. Eldad.
Yeah, so this was fun. Thanks everyone for the great discussion and insights. Again, Satori is a data security platform, and we automate access, security, and privacy for the modern data stack. If you're migrating your data platform to the cloud, if you're scaling a specific business use case, we would love to partner with you and do it faster, cheaper, and less risk. If you're interested, feel free to find us on LinkedIn at Satori, on our website, satoricyber.com, or just hit me personally on LinkedIn, Eldad Chai. It's pretty easy to find, and would love to chat. Thanks, everyone.
Sounds great. I'll have to connect with you myself. David, how about you? I think you're on mute.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
At Flafile, we're a data exchange platform. We're specifically focused on solving for data import, data collection, and data exchange between businesses. And whether the data is coming from a customer or a vendor, Flafile is often where the journey of that data starts. Given how messy that data and how labor intensive it is to accept it and clean that data up, obviously leveraging AI here is pretty massive. We're investing our energy in helping business stakeholders work with AI to clean up their data that they're receiving and trust the results. We have to build systems that allow AI to work its magic without it becoming black magic. So you can learn more about what we do at flafile.com, and please feel free to reach out to me directly on LinkedIn.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Candid.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And I would suggest go over to acronis.com and kind of see how we can help you be more efficient in protecting your data. We're more than just a backup company. We're more than just an antivirus company. We're a cyber protection company. So combining those things, and that gives you the visibility that you need nowadays. And of course, also to automate it with AI, with scripts, but making sure that you can actually protect your data regardless of where you have it. Acronis has your back. And of course, feel also free to reach me on LinkedIn. Again, yeah, there's not too many Candid West, so you should be able to find me.
Absolutely. Thank you. And last but not least, our moderator, Patricia.
Thank you very much for having me here. So what Private AI does is provides you a very accurate system for understanding any kind of PII you have across 52 different languages and text, audio, images, and documents. And you can deploy this anywhere you want in your environment, from on-prem to cloud agnostic, and provide visibility from a product level perspective or anywhere in your software pipeline to your CISO, CIO, data protection officer, and control over what data is flowing, even directly within your own products. So you can contact me on LinkedIn or go to private-ai.com. Thank you.